Welcome to STL Sports Central, all content provided by DraftKings. The crown is yours. This is the Card Central Postgame Show, as the title suggests. The Cardinals do split the series against the Cubs. They lose 3-0 in their second straight shutout loss against the team from the friendly confines. This wasn't a whole lot of fun to watch. The last two nights were not very fun to watch. If you are a St. Louis sports fan, I guess not last two nights, but last night and today, Cardinals bats just couldn't do anything with Shota Imanaga. The Cubs bats, they waited for their moment. Andre Pallante actually turned out a pretty good performance. He kept them in this game despite a couple of close calls. But it just feels like if you have a starting pitcher that is more of a pitch-to-contact guy, you're not going to have much success against the Chicago Cubs in the year 2025.
No, plain and simple, you can't expect to win a game when you score 0 runs. I feel like, Stefan, in the history of baseball, I don't think that's ever happened where a team has won a game when scoring 0 runs, and the Cardinals are now, 25 innings that they're at the moment. So it's a struggle all around right now. And yeah, Pallante pitched. I mean, when you look at it overall, like, okay, gave up a home run, a solo shot. That's fine. You can live with giving up solo shots, and then put himself into a bit of a situation, loading the bases, walking in a run, but that was it. Limited it to that, and was able to pitch around and get himself out of that situation.
Well, and if you are a St. Louis fan, it's like we've said all series long, pick your poison. Do you want to get the starter out of the game, or do you want to leave him in and hope that the bullpen has an off night? They're both so talented. Imanaga, at first start off the IL, 5 innings, 1 hit, no runs. I mean, he was sensational for the Chicago Cubs. But then you look at the bullpen. Look at some of these numbers that they're rolling out here. They go with Thielbar, who's got a 2.03 ERA. Keller, who's got a 1.96. Drew Pomeranz is yet to surrender an earned run this year. And Daniel Palencia at a 1.86. I mean, this is probably the best bullpen in baseball, the best relief corps in baseball. And if you can't get traction against them in the early stages of the game, you're probably not going to win. And that's what happened the last 2 nights for St. Louis. But going back to Palencia,
I want to dive in on Palencia. Yeah, go ahead.
You might have poked the sleeping bear a little bit with Wilson Contreras, and I don't think that was his best choice. I'm not suggesting that in any way he was trying to hit Contreras. Hitting him put the tying run at the plate, but you have a chance to get retribution in a few short days. I wouldn't have been doing all that smack talking, because if there's anybody who can create his own energy, it's Wilson Contreras.
Yeah, that's I think what that was initially. I mean, you know it. You've talked to guys. I mean, it's not a matter. Sometimes you're not mad that you don't accuse a guy of throwing at you. It's more a case of you're upset that the pitcher at a major league level doesn't have the control to not hit you. That's what you're more pissed off about, to where you're sitting there, you go, you know what, you're in the big leagues. You have, you're one of 13 guys in that bullpen. Throw a ball, have better control than that, to where you're not, if you're going to, if you're going to throw, don't throw up and in on that. So it's more a case of just being pissed off at the fact that, hey, you shouldn't be at this level right now. You should, if you're going to miss like that, go back down to AA and miss on those guys at that level. Because if you're going to throw 101, you have to be responsible with it, at being able to throw 101 in a game. So, and Wilson Contreras is absolutely a self-starter when it comes to that. He is looking for a reason to get pissed off. He's looking for a reason to fire himself up, and then the rest of the team around him. The comments the other day of saying, the Cardinals have a better organization than the Cubs. That's purely to say, hey, I used to be there. Now I'm here. I'm all in on this organization right now, and firing you up that way. I cannot wait for the first inning of that first game coming up on the 4th of July next week.
And it's a powder keg for Contreras, who did not have his best series. He was awfully quiet in comparison to the rest of the lineup, and you know that he is going to take a huge amount of the blame internally. He's the guy that is the one that says, you know what, I'm going to own up to it. I'm the heart and soul of this team, and I expect him to bounce back in a big way at Wrigley Field in just a few short days. Now, there are 2 ways you can look at this series. You could look at it as saying, hey, they split it when they had the opportunity to win. But you could also look at it as the Cardinals were relatively offensively dominant through the first 2 games. And thank goodness they won the second game, which was a 1-run victory. because this very easily could have been a 3-1 series win for the Cubs. Now you get the 2-2 series split. Yes, there was a comment that they got complacent after game 2. I don't know that that's fair to the Cardinals. They faced two of the best starting pitchers in the National League, two left-handed pitchers who we know the Cardinals have struggled against outside of Burleson, Arenado, and Contreras. And, you still split the series and have a chance to play these guys in a few days. Now, playing them at Wrigley versus playing them at Busch Stadium are two very completely different things. Atmospherically, I think the Cubs are going to have a big advantage. Offensively, I think the Cubs are going to have a big advantage. And you're probably going to have to wonder, where in the rotation are you going to be? Sonny Gray not pitching today was a huge, huge factor. It was a big factor of this game because Sonny Gray gets deeper into games typically than Palante does. Now you get him tomorrow for the Guardians series. You stop this slide, and hopefully he can turn out a good performance and they can get back on track.
Yeah, and I would, yesterday, the lefty Boyd that you faced yesterday, he's been phenomenal. He has picked up the slack that they have needed with not having Amanaga and Steele in their rotation all season long. But today, facing a guy who hasn't made a start in Major League Baseball in about 7 weeks, that's one that it hurts. Like you don't, like, if you're the Cubs, you feel like you might have stole a win in this one, getting him back and having him pitch a solid, 5 1/3 that he went today without allowing a run. So it one hit really, and two in that. So it's one of those where you want to come into that and you want to say, okay, hey, you're back. Great. You threw 70 pitches. We scored 4 runs against you in those, and the Cardinals not being able to do that hurt them. And somebody in the comments too, throwing out there, I blame the lack of right-handed hitters. This is what you and I were talking about before the show, that yes, the Cardinals have struggled to hit lefties. They're going to struggle a heck of a lot more when you don't have Ivan Herrera and Jordan Walker available to you. And that hurts more than anything, because that is just, for the time being, for the next, I don't know how long you're out with an appendicitis. We know it's 2 to 5 weeks. We probably won't see Herrera until after the All-Star break. So I think right now, I don't want to look ahead at some of the rotations for these teams coming up and see what lefties are on the horizon, because it's going to be tough moving forward.
Yeah, and that makes you wonder, what do they do at the trade deadline? Do they go and get another right-handed bat purely to just keep their chances alive and keep this thing afloat? Maybe you get somebody that, you can get off of waivers, or you go for the big shot. I'm looking at a guy like Luis Robert, who has certainly lost a good bit of value in the market because of his struggles at the plate. Can you, maybe work him back into the fold if you're a Cardinals fan? He seems like he'd be a good fit, but that's all conjecture, and we'll figure out what the Cardinals do a little bit later on. But I want to talk about the Cardinals' strategy at the plate. Typically, you see very good work. You see them have a good game plan. The first inning, it looked like great. 20 pitches in the first inning. Love that. It stopped there. A lot of early in the count swings. Brendan Donovan, the entire series, has been swinging at the first or second pitch, and I've seen a lot of rollovers to first or second, which is totally uncharacteristic. He's in a bit of a cold spell. If you're one of the more disciplined hitters, you got to be disciplined at the plate, especially against a pitcher like Imanaga. And that's not to take away anything from the guys. You'd much rather record a hit than a walk, but sometimes it's okay to record a walk in a tight game like today was.
Yeah, and that's something that needs to change with his approach being the leadoff hitter now. That's something that you do want to see him work a few more counts, or make other changes, I guess, too. With that, you are so left-handed heavy at the moment in your lineup. I think Ollie might have to go away from that left right that you have, because it's it's a case of it's just a case of what's not available to you at the moment.
Yeah, there's certainly a shortage of right-handed hitting. And what do? Who do you call up? You called up Jose Fermin. That's more defensive depth. But offensively, what does he provide? We've seen it. He's had glimmers. He had glimmers in spring training where he played great. What is he going to do in terms of slugging the baseball at the major league level? Well, we kind of have a pretty good idea of what that is. Thomas Saggese hasn't really made his presence felt. And I think getting sent down, back up, you got him riding the hot hand at AAA. Hasn't quite shown it yet in his few starts with the Cardinals. We hope that changes. The bright side, Gorman hit well. Nootbaar hit well. They took much better at bats. Mason Wynn had some good at bats today. Those are all things that are important, but it hurts to lose this way to the Cubs, especially for them to be able to puff their chest out after being beaten the way they were beaten in game one, beaten the way that they were beaten in game two. And now they're riding high after knowing, hey, we shut out the Cardinals in games 3 and 4 of this series.
Yeah, and looking ahead too, and I haven't yet. I haven't looked at who the starters are and what hands they throw with in Cleveland and Pittsburgh. But if you need that thump, I wonder if you do maybe take a flyer on a guy like a Luken Baker again, and maybe bring him back up here for another 10-game stint, depending on what you're going to have available to you, or what the opposing teams are going to have coming out of their bullpen. Maybe that's an option that you kind of look at the moment. I know his time here in St. Louis to start the year was not great at all, but I think that's something to maybe look at.
I think that's a really great point. I think that you have some depth in the minor leagues, might as well use it. I know they're taking their time with some of these prospects, but a guy like Josh Baez, maybe start to expedite him. Power hitting right-handed outfielder. And he's a guy that I think has been talked about as one of the more athletic prospects in the farm. I know that they are being very, very patient with him, with Chase Davis, with Weatherholt. But if you need a right-handed bat, what does it hurt? Especially if he's performing at Double-A. That's the proving ground. That's the prospect ground. But Heimblum and, of course, John Mozeliak know a lot more than we do at this point in time. Let's take a quick pause and talk about DraftKings. Baseball season is officially underway, and it's time to step up to the plate with DraftKings Pick 6. Think of DraftKings Pick 6 as your fastball right down the middle. It's the easiest way to play for cash and take a shot at a big win. Just like 2 or more players and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat. Pick 6 is available in most states, including California, Texas, Georgia, Missouri, and more. Cash in your baseball knowledge. New players get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly on just a $5 entry. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app and use code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports for new customers to play. $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins. Only with Pick 6 from DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Joe, I'm not sure if you saw this in discussing the injury bug that has plagued the Cardinals, but apparently, and I believe it was Jeff Jones that reported this for St. Louis, Andre Granillo dealing with some bicep forearm issues at AAA. That would be a big, big blow to the Cardinals, who sent him down after trying to get some fresh arms. You don't want a guy to blow out in the minor leagues that's going to be a major league impact player and already has been an impact player for you. That would be really difficult for St. Louis.
Who was that you were you were talking about?
Andre Granillo.
Oh, yeah, that's I did not see that report. That's and that's unfortunate, seeing how he quickly became kind of one of those highly touted arms that you had, and you thought maybe that could be your strikeout guy that you're going to use moving forward. I think you even one of those guys one of those stories that you see in the postseason of a guy that started so low and worked his way up. So that is unfortunate, but I did miss that. Yeah.
Certainly hope everything is okay for Andre. Love him as a player, love him as a person, and hoping that the reports are untrue or maybe less drastic than the immediate reaction that I had reading it today. Now, to put a final bow on this series against the Cubs, I'm looking at it as a victory for the Cardinals. Yes, you need to pick up some ground on Chicago, but this very easily could have been a series where you lost 2 games of ground. You stay at 4.5, you stay in the hunt, in the wild card, and your team has proven to themselves that they can hit with the Cubs. Now, can they pitch with them? Fedde had a bad night last night. He was ambushed, and there was nowhere to hide. Palante had a pretty good day today. There just was no run support. And when you are a pitch-to-contact pitcher, the Cubs are going to grind and grind and grind, and that's what we saw the last 2 days.
Yeah. By the way, so in the locker room, Wilson Contreras has spoken to the media. Seen Derek Gould tweeting a quote from Wilson Contreras saying that he reacted in the moment to being hit again, and he told the pitcher to throw strikes. He said, "My reaction was bad. I apologize to the Chicago Cubs for the way I reacted. I don't want to fight them." So that is a
Okay.
a direct quote from Wilson Contreras. And if you go on Twitter and you search Contreras' name, if you search Wilson Contreras' name, it's amazing how quickly Chicago fans have turned against a once fan favorites. It's funny how fast those things can change.
It is funny how quick those things can change, but he is one of those players that's polarizing. You love him if he's on your team. You absolutely can't stand him if he's not. And I think that's the mark of a really good and really frustrating player for opposing fan bases. I look to see him having a big series against the Cubs at Wrigley. I think that negative energy will actually fuel him more than the positive energy of being at home against Chicago. There's a lot more pressure to perform at Wrigley than there is at Busch, right? Because everybody's rooting for you. Everybody already loves you when you're at Busch Stadium. At Wrigley, well, as you suggested on Twitter, not so much. And he has been able to turn that energy into a positive. In fact, he said he loves it when he gets booed because he can again turn that energy into something positive for the Cardinals.
Yeah, that's going into it next week. I mean, it's going to be played over and over again. It's going to be asked about over and over again. He could sit there every single game, pregame and postgame against Cleveland and Pittsburgh, and reiterate that he overreacted and apologizes. He could say that for the next 6-7 games, and sure enough, when Friday rolls around, it's going to be brought back up again. And he's going to be questioned about it one more time. So it doesn't matter anything that's said now for the next week. It's still going to be mentioned.
You're absolutely right about that. Now let's highlight a little bit of this series at Cleveland. It's going to be Luis Ortiz versus Sonny Gray in game one. Great time for Sonny to start. Another right-handed pitcher. So fortunately, the Cardinals can avoid the lefties against a Guardians team that I think people expected to have a better record than they did. The Tigers have not necessarily run away with the division, but they're building a sizable lead in the AL Central. This is a Guardians team that, much like some of the others that were faced at the end of last month and the beginning of this month, have struggled to score. And that's a slippery slope because every time we talk about a team that is scuffling at the plate, they seem to find their way again against the Cardinals. And I'm not trying to speak that into existence, but I think Sonny Gray can continue their woes in game one.
I'm sorry. Could you say that again, Stefan?
Yeah, no worries. I was saying that the Guardians are a team that, again, has struggled a little bit more than people would have expected. The Tigers have been the best team in the AL Central. They're building a lead within their division. And if you look at the Guardians of late, they've struggled to score. And that's a slippery slope. Like I was saying earlier, the teams that have been struggling to score have come up against the Cardinals and started to score. So I'm not trying to speak that into existence, but Sonny Gray is just the man for the job to continue their hitting woes and maybe keep that order in check and get the Cardinals back in the win column.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I can't. It has to be frustrating for the Guardians right now because they're playing good baseball. They're hovering around 500, but that's going to be good enough to keep them into that AL wildcard mix for the entire season, much like it did in years past. The Tigers, far and away, best team in baseball, 10 games up right now on them. And it's one of those where no matter what you do, like you could go on a 4-game winning streak, they'll go on a 5-game winning streak. You can go 4-1, they'll go 5-0. It's just going to continue to be frustrating for them all season unless they go on one of those magical runs coming up. So these are teams though that we just looked at the Cubs. You split against the Cubs. Dodgers a few weekends ago, you took the series from the Dodgers. When you are facing off against potential playoff teams like you're going to tomorrow with the Guardians, it is a situation where, okay, this is a test of ourselves right here. How do we measure up against a team like this?
And I think that question is going to be answered relatively quickly into the series, right? Luis Ortiz, ERA of about 4.5. That's game one. Game number two, I believe, features Slade Ciccone, who I got to know well when he was pitching in Amarillo in the Diamondbacks organization. He was part of that trade that sent Josh Naylor to the Diamondbacks. He has had a very good career revival in Milwaukee. Another right-handed pitcher, though. So the Cardinals will get 2 righties at the very least against the Guardians. And this is a team that, again, can pitch. They have a fanatic, rabid crowd that will really enjoy their Guardians, especially with the Cardinals in town. That Midwestern clash, it should be a packed ballpark in Cleveland over the next few days.
Yeah, and a great ballpark to be in, and a nice. Hopefully the weather breaks too in the Midwest. I don't know what you're dealing with down there right now, but hopefully,
I mean, it is what it is, man.
Hopefully it breaks for them this weekend. And again, with moving Sonny back, you mentioned it. You push him back another day. Would have liked to have seen him get the start today to end the series. I don't know what the plan is behind that. I'm sure they have it mapped out for the next 2 weeks. So see how it plays out over the next 2 weeks, see where they get McGreevy in there again and everything else that's going to come with that.
You only need to hang around enough to make a decision. Are you buyers or sellers? And once we decide what that decision is, then we'll know where this team's trajectory is in the year 2025. Now, that's not to say it's an all or nothing thing. If the Cardinals are sellers at the deadline, I think they still have the pieces to be competitive. They might still have the pieces to win a wild card spot. But if they're buyers, then they're all in. They think that this team can compete for the World Series. And I think that right now you can do a little bit of both. You can try and be in the buyer's market maybe for an arm or a right-handed bat, and then in the seller's market for some positional pieces, right? Yeah. If you want to get more looks at Gorman, all right, Arenado's value is starting to rise. And it pains me to say that because Arenado on the defensive side alone has been valuable just to have back on this team. Helsley, who knows what you do with him, but he was so key in that Game 2 win for St. Louis. I think all the names that are highlighted, they could be very valuable to other teams. And right now, when you see the contributions from guys like Burleson, Donovan, Mason Wynn, Nolan Gorman, Lars Nootbaar starting to heat up, it's exciting to think about the future.
It is, absolutely. And I think we're a long way from that at the moment. That's something right now I'm looking at buying. I'm looking at adding arms. I'm looking at adding McGreevy into the rotation every fifth day. That's where my mindset is at the moment with this team. So any talk of trade away, we've seen this team go on so many runs this year. I don't think you can consider them to be sellers right now.
No, I don't consider them to be sellers right now, but I also think realistically, who are other teams going to ask for? They're going to ask for Quinn Matthews. Yeah. They're going to ask for Tekoa Roby. They're going to ask for Tink Hence. They're going to ask for Weatherholt or Chase Davis. These are all players that I don't think the Cardinals are going to be willing to deal unless they get the deal of a lifetime.
And I don't think you're going to get players in return that warrant that. So no. I think that's where the issue is I don't think you're going to be dealing for that. I think you're going to be dealing for such low-hanging fruit, if you will, that I think that you're not going to have to give up anybody that you think might be in your future.
They're not going to be buyers. They're not going to be sellers. They're going to be thrifters. And we're going to figure out who those guys are at the trade deadline. Well, Joe, I'm excited for this 3-game series against the Guardians. I know that things didn't end quite the way the Cardinals fans would have liked. They still split the series, remained 4.5 out, and 1 game back in the wild card. We're about halfway through the season, and I'm very pleased about what this Cardinals team has been able to do, winning in a variety of ways. Have anything to say before we sign off?
Got nothing. We'll see. We'll recap it again, or we'll preview it again coming up tomorrow afternoon on 365.
All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much. This is STL Sports Central, the Cards Central Postgame show for Joe Roderick. I'm Stefan Caray, and we will see you tomorrow. 3-game series against the Guardians. Cardinals look to get back on track.